Welcome to the Cast Blast Grill Chill podcast with Jeremy and Trevor, the podcast that's all about hunting, fishing, grilling, and chilling out and having a good time in the outdoors. Alrighty, Trevor, we're rolling here. So, I guess you're on your way out to the National Forest right now, huh?
Yeah, yep. Just rolling through the countryside on the way out to the National Forest. About halfway there now, and gonna go out there for a muzzleloader season. Today is the last day of general season here in Texas, and I'm gonna get out there and pop a tent up and go set the stand and hunt the last day of general season tonight. Then do 3 days after that, trying to fill a couple more tags before the end of the season.
Well, trying to fill a tag before the end of season because you've had a pretty rough go of it this year.
Yeah, trying to fill a tag. I think we left off before we had all of our technical issues and lost a couple of hours of content with our last trip out to the National Forest.
Yeah, I believe that's right. I believe the last time we recorded was right that we actually was able to salvage a podcast was right before we went out and did our rut hunt.
Yeah, so that it was a pretty decent hunt. We moved in and we were going in right as a cold front was going to blow in while we in the middle of our trip out there, which had my hopes high. Got out there. We did 2 all-day sits?
Yeah, 2 all-day sits. First day
in the morning.
Yeah, because I got out there a day before you.
Yeah, Wednesday or Thursday, and then you set up camp. Then we came in the next evening, and had dinner and stuff. Then ended up going out the next morning. I think we did just in the morning and an afternoon that day. And walking into the stand that morning, it was probably 5 a.m., 5:30 a.m. and saw a couple of does. I know walking my dad to the stand.
Yeah.
He had 3 or 4 does, on the trail into his stand.
Yeah.
And then I saw one at 15, 20 yards from me walking into my stand that would not move. It looked like a straight up decoy standing there. It was just so motionless. Yeah, it was just sitting there staring me down. Didn't sniff into the air, just kind of like, what's this thing coming over here? Oh, well, if it's my time, it's my time. It didn't care one way or the other what I was.
Yeah. Knew it was safe.
Yeah, and in my head, that gave me all kinds of confidence about my scent control goals that I had set for myself at the beginning of the season. I was like, yeah, man, I'm on top of this.
Yeah, because you're using that box now, that scent crusher bag and all that stuff.
Yeah, I'm using the redhead scent control bag with the silver line bag, and washing all the clothes every time and not putting on my camo until I actually get to where I'm driving to. And all that good stuff. So I'm taking extra precautions this year where in the past, I've said, oh, well, I'll change into my camo that morning and then drive out to wherever I'm hunting and then, just get out and start going in. But, I'm starting to take more and more details into account for scent control. And that was one of the goals I set for myself this year. And I think it's paid off. I've seen more deer this year than I have any other year, bucks and does. Whether that's me being in a better spot, them having a good year, or just coincidence, I don't know. But I like to think that it paid off.
Yeah, I would definitely say with the amount of deer you've been seeing this year, it has definitely paid off for you. So that hunt, it started out on a real high note, and we saw lots of game, but for the most part, no bucks on that trip, which seems to be kind of my MO all year. You've been having better luck finding the ones with horns, but
yeah, that spot that we hunt, I feel like we've talked about this, that we feel like it's just really highly pressured. The road we hunt down in the national forest, that access point, that trailhead, I think it's got hit a lot harder since we started going out there.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I'm of that same opinion that that road used to be kind of tucked away, out of the way, and not very heavily pressured. But I mean, on every single hunt I think we've been on out there the past 2 years, there seems like there's a different vehicle on that road every single time we go out there.
Yeah, and you
So
can almost count there being somebody else out there, unless you're out there on a Wednesday, kind of in the middle of general season where it's, most people are kind of off of the excitement of it being deer season again. And, they're probably back to work and, there's probably going to be another vehicle there unless you catch the time like that.
yeah, well, I
Uh,
mean, even when I was out there during bow season, there was somebody out there on that road.
yeah, and that national forest, there's not that many bow hunters as with anything else, with anywhere else. I mean, than there are gun hunters.
Yeah,
So yeah, I think that road just got highly pressured. But on the flip side of that coin, I did have a lot of sightings of does, and I think I had 11 does hanging out the first morning, and they hung out for about 40 minutes. Came into about 25 yards, and just hung around. Stayed around. I actually, it was pretty cool. I got to, with not being able to shoot a doe that time of the season, I was just not worried about it. And so I got to try out a few things with, just calls and stuff, and their reactions to each call. So I actually played around with, the grunt tube and stuff like that, just watching their reactions if I did that, or, a doe bleed. And it was pretty cool actually watching one of the matriarch does respond to that doe bleed, whether she thought it was a fawn or a distress from another doe in that area. I'm not sure, but I flipped it over. I did one long one, and then I flipped it over again, did a half of the can,
yeah,
and so then she kind of perks her head up, puts her head back down, and then puts her head back up and trots over to the general direction, and then gets real alert, kind of checks it out, sniffs around, couldn't catch wind of anything, and then just kind of goes back to what she's doing. And with me doing that, hanging around, I was just kind of trying to make a little bit more noise, and I have 11 live decoys standing there. I was hoping there was a decent buck standing back off, just kind of watching the scene, maybe get him excited and get him to step out, but that just didn't happen.
yeah, that's the way that hunt pretty much went. I mean, everything always looked good, but we just could never find the one, buck that was in the rut. I think we kind of timed it wrong by the different Facebook groups, the Texas hunting group, the East Texas uh, hunting group, the all the different
Yeah,
groups that we follow. It seemed like the weekend before we were there, everyone was seeing good chasing, and the weekend after, everyone was seeing good chasing. But that weekend we were there, it seemed like everybody had a rough weekend that weekend. So I don't
yeah, and
know. I don't know if we were
I
in the
don't,
lockdown or what, but
and like we said at the beginning, we had high hopes going in for that cold weather pushing through while we were out there, and we always seem to time it wrong where, oh, we're out there right after or right before the weather actually pushes through. So we were like, yes, this time we nailed it. We somehow took off vacation right as a cold front's going to blow in, right where we're going to be, and we just didn't get to execute this time. It just didn't happen for us. But we also did set up, after talking about that road being highly pressured, we did set up a plan to come out and do some squirrel hunting out there, and do a lot more pounding the ground, getting out, going a little bit deeper, going a little more familiarized with the area, and getting some squirrels in the pod too, man.
yeah, I'm excited for our squirrel scouting trip. I definitely want to uh, definitely bang some roads out that day. I want to go look at some places that we don't typically hunt. I want to drive way up to the north end of the forest and way off to the west end of the forest as well. Places that don't have as easy access, and just kind of look around. Maybe we can do that on Sunday. Like you were saying earlier when we were talking. Spend most of the day Saturday out in the woods trying to get some squirrels for the pot and scouting around our typical area. But Sunday, I'd like to kind of on our way out, maybe go bang around and go
branch out a little bit. And man, I wish we could have salvaged the audio, and I don't know where you're at with that, but I wish we could have salvaged the audio of us running into the game warden out there, because we were having a conversation about a rumor that we had heard from a guy we know that hunts out there, that he had stated that it's illegal to carry a rimfire rifle into the national forest at all to hunt for anything. Thought process being, because it's illegal for deer and they're worried about poaching and all this stuff. And we could never find it in any of the regulations stating that you could not. So we were literally recording in the car on the way back to camp, talking about this for the podcast. And we were like, we need to call the game warden and just ask the game warden. And lo and behold,
there he is driving towards us.
There he is driving right at us. So you just skirt right off the road, pull off onto the side of the road, throw the truck in park, and we're both like pulling out, hunting licenses and waving him down, basically like, hey, come check us, because we got a question for you, bud.
Yeah.
And the phone was still recording at that point too, because it was just immediate.
Yeah.
And I just wish we could have had that audio, but it just, man, we've lost so much content that it's been frustrating, since that trip. What has it been? At least two whole podcasts, and then some other audio.
Yeah, we've definitely
just technical issues.
Yeah, we've lost a fair amount of content due to technical issues, but it seems like I've gotten all that worked out now. So hopefully, going forward, we won't have as many issues.
Yeah, and we're gonna do a better job of just backing stuff up if we do lose one, then we can kind of butcher it back together. But that would have been a great piece to have, and hopefully we can salvage it in the future. But it was just like the gods just threw the game warden right at us, like, you ask and you shall receive, here's your answer to the question. And he did reinforce the fact that you can definitely come out here. He had never heard anything like that, and you can definitely hunt squirrels with the 22. So
he said the only thing that wasn't allowed was buckshot, which we already knew.
Yeah, which is clearly stated in the regulations out there. So that got us real excited, and I'm ready to go. So that season runs until the last Sunday of February. So we'll have to get out and do that and do some scouting. Other than that, nothing harvested over that trip. And from there, you took a trip up to Arkansas to some family farm up there, right?
Yeah, I went up to my mom and stepdad's family farm up there in Arkansas to go do Thanksgiving, and I managed to shoot me a big old doe while I was up there. Got her all cut up and processed in the freezer. Managed to give you a little bit of meat the last time I saw you for Christmas.
I was in the red zone, so I greatly appreciate that. I ended up, I think, getting almost 10 pounds of grind out of that, so that'll get me through.
And then I've got a whole nother, if you're not successful here, I still got a bag of, hold on real quick. My mom's making her a drink.
No worries.
But I got my piece of paper here set up for editing.
Sweet. Dude, I'm still stuck behind this fucking 18-wheeler.
Okay, so like I was saying, you have some front shoulder steaks here available to you too. So
Whenever
like I was saying, we got I got some shoulder roasts and stuff here for you too. So as far as the meat goes, if you're not successful, I've got you covered. Because
Yeah, I feel
that
like
doe I wound
I
up
stand
shooting.
a pretty decent chance.
Yeah, I think you will for sure at least be able to harvest a doe up there. Um, but yeah, that doe I shot up there in Arkansas, I mean, she was big. I'm definitely looking forward to going back up there and doing that again. That was a lot of fun. I definitely poor boy that didn't hunt out of a blind or anything. I got into some tall grass where around a well house that the hay machine couldn't cut, and just kind of laid down prone in that spot because my mom had basically told me right where she was seeing them every evening. And I went out there and shook a little bit of corn out there to sweeten it up around that area where the acorns have been dropping. And the first morning or afternoon I was there, I wound up just flat out missing. I wound up taking a shot a little further than I thought I was. But that second time I set up prone in that little spot and managed to get it done. One shot, shot her right through the heart and dropped her where she stood.
Yeah, that was a big doe, man. That was a very, very hefty doe. That is not a hill country deer by any means.
No, that was no 65-pound doe. That was probably a 150, 160-pound doe, it seemed like.
Yeah, yeah, she was real big. You know, compared to everything I see, living in Central Texas, that's a big deer.
Yeah, for sure. And she wasn't old. She was only probably 2.5, is what,
Yeah,
by looking at her teeth, is what we kind of came up with.
yeah, I definitely enjoyed the meat, man. It was delicious, and I know you're happy to get something big in the freezer. And other than deer, we've been doing some waterfowl hunting, and I know you had made a trip out to the coast. I think at least 2 times since the last podcast, and kind of run us through how that went.
Yeah, let's see. I guess the last time we talked about my trips down to the coast was when we went down opening weekend to Big Duck down there. I know we discussed that. I guess I went down there again when that first big cold front came through, and it was in the 20s, even down there on the coast, or
Oh,
maybe
that's
the
right.
maybe the
Yeah,
high 30s. And we went down there and we froze our behinds off down there, but really to no avail. We couldn't really pin a spot down that we wanted to go. Um, so we went, where we'd been going during the first split. That was the opening of the second split. That's right. Um,
and the cold front pushed through right on the opening of the second split. So y'all had all new birds come in, but it did look like it looked like y'all shot a decent amount of birds, but just couldn't quite touch a limit per person
no,
for whatever reason.
I think the first day we shot 4 birds, and the second day we shot 4 birds, or maybe the first day we shot 6 birds, and the second day we shot 4 birds. They just wouldn't cooperate with us. They wouldn't work our spread. We weren't in exactly the right spot. That's the way it goes sometimes. Um,
Yeah, that's waterfowl hunting for you, man. If you're not where they want to be, they'll come by, they'll look at you, and you can get a couple of shots by. And
well, I mean that was
sometimes they just, especially in the second split, they just don't want to be called at in a certain way, or they don't like the look of something, or whatever.
yeah. They're extremely educated by the time they get down here to Texas. They've been shot at all the way from
Yeah,
Canada to here. But I think the biggest thing
yeah,
was that like we just didn't set up in the right spot. I mean, we could see birds off in the distance, but like where we set up on this particular hunt, they didn't get even close enough really to call at, really close enough you know to work. I mean, we'd see
yeah.
them, 800 yards away. I mean,
Hmm.
there's maybe earlier in the season, like early teal and stuff like that, you can maybe turn a bird like that. But this late in the second split, nah, there was no working those birds. They were on a mission.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's how it goes sometimes. And hey, I mean, I'm always happy to bring something home with me because my thing is just I love the meat of anything, and so I'm just happy to bring anything home with me that'll stack up the racks and freezer a little bit more.
Oh yeah, well, and I mean, you're never gonna. I mean, I guess you could feed yourself on ducks, but it'd be a hard scrabble life if that's all you were eating. But yeah, I definitely like to get a few ducks to go in the freezer. But waterfowl hunting for me is that's just a passion. It's the
Oh yeah,
funnest kind of
absolutely.
hunting there is. And harvesting birds and getting them for the pot is just pure bonus.
Yeah, yeah, and you did bring me from that, I believe, from that trip, two birds for my dog, so I'm gonna save those and work them over the off season, and just keep him on the up and up for the next season, because I have a feeling that it might be his last season next season when that I'm going to run him.
Yeah,
He's 7 now, so he's still energetic enough, and he doesn't have arthritis or anything real bad. But we'll see over the next year what happens, and he may come out and ride in the boat, but I'm not going to push him too hard.
yeah. I'd say maybe throttling back next season on the dove hunts. Maybe if we get a nice easy dove shoot and a nice picked cornfield or something like that where it's easy going, it'd be okay to take him at
Yeah,
those.
and he loves going dove hunting, man. If there's one thing he loves to do, it's run around and pick up morning doves.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah, but yeah. Oh well, speaking of waterfowl, before we get too far in here, I managed to go over Thanksgiving. My dad and I went out, I think the morning of or the morning before Thanksgiving, and we got a couple shots on some gadwall, and then it was dead. It was real dead, and we were just about thinking about packing it up, and I think it was about 9:30, 10 o'clock, something like that. And we had a group of pintail working, and I managed my first pintail drake ever. So that was a really exciting hunt for me, and I won't forget that, because I had somehow managed to never be able to knock down the pintail, man. Um, so I think, but aside from a couple of coastal divers and stuff like that, and some stuff that we don't have in Texas, that's definitely my last puddle duck on my list that I have not shot. So
yeah,
that
and
was an exciting one for me.
that was definitely a stud of a pintail drake too. He was definitely a wall hanger. But
Yeah,
but but
yeah,
but instead he went to the pot.
I just and he was shot in the right place to put it on, but my stomach convinced me otherwise. I'll have that memory, and I got, with as many pictures as we can take nowadays, it's that memory is not going anywhere, and I can always look back on that, and so I'll be all right. But I did save um, the pin quills out of his tail feather,
There you
so I
go.
did that, and maybe I'll make something out of that. But
I've seen a lot of guys online taking like their mallard curls and their sprigs and like getting a getting like a waterfowling pitcher and sticking them in the inside of the frame.
yeah, right now it's sitting in a deadhead buck I got hanging on the wall. It's just one of the holes in the skull. It's just sticking out of there right now. But I've seen a lot of those ideas too, and I see a lot of guys. I'd like to, if I get more into fly fishing, I'd like to start, keeping feathers off of some of the ducks we shoot. Trying to tie some flies. I think that's something I might be interested in doing in the future.
Yeah, I've also seen guys doing the flies where guys are taking feathers from their birds and tying purely ornamental flies,
Yeah, I've seen that as well. Yeah, just ornamental stuff for
and then
like a show box or something, like
yeah,
a
and
shadow
then
box
yeah, and
kind of
put them on a
deal.
shadow box on the wall. And I kind of like that idea. I may actually get the little clamps and stuff to tie some flies and do that with some of the feathers because I think that'd be a cool way to you know hang on to some of these ducks without actually putting them on the wall.
Yeah, and one thing I do want to touch on that I've more recently gotten into, um, yeah, something that you've been doing a little bit longer, I think, is just joining these Facebook groups in your local area. And I've learned so much just from other people, putting their their thoughts and ideas out online and getting to come up with some ideas, and especially like a DIY page. Those are awesome to me. And, I've seen a ton of ideas that I want to do, as far as like waterfowl and stuff like that goes. And guys are super helpful and instructional, and they'll walk you through a process, whether it's you want to learn how to rig up a remote for your mojo, or you want a good idea for, a full body decoy or something like that.
Yeah,
There's
like what?
stuff on there, and it's free info.
Yeah, definitely. Like one of the things I've been seeing a lot in that DIY waterfowl group is the guys taking going to the Dollar Tree dollar store and buying the paper towel holders, the little cheap wire ones,
Yeah,
and then putting a 90-degree bend on them, and then using their mallard floaters and different decoys as so they can use them as field decoys. Spray painting.
yeah,
And I mean,
yeah,
there's
and
tons of little ideas like that in those groups, and it's just it's it expands your knowledge base. You have a question of, hey, how do I do this? Odds are there's somebody in that group that will say, hey, this is how I did it, and show you pictures and tell you how they did it. So it's pretty awesome.
yeah, and a lot of times, there's people wanting to know the answer to a similar question, and they'll just, follow that thread, and so by you asking the question, you're helping out more than just yourself. You're helping out like a lot more people in that community that want, ideas as well, and answers to questions that they may have.
Yeah, there's definitely things that I've seen pop up in there that like I didn't know I wanted answered, but
Yeah,
hey, I'll be thumbing through it and be like, oh my god, that's awesome. That's like the uh, the guy with the using the hang on deer stand for a dog ladder.
yeah, that was a really cool idea, because I was mentioning to you that I was trying to figure out a way, because I'd bought this banded boat ladder for your dog, and it just doesn't quite fit right on my gunnels for my boat. And I ended up being able to rig mine so it'll work temporarily, but this guy had taken a $40 hang on stand and taken the seat portion off, so you just have the foot pedestal, and then using the bracket that would sit on parallel to the tree trunk, and bolting that to the
Transom of his boat.
to the transom of the boat, so the dog can just swim up and step up on that, and, swim up just right onto it, just like a swim up platform. So that was a really cool idea, and I mean, for $40, that's how much I paid for that banded ladder, and that thing looks a lot more sturdy than the banded ladder does.
Yeah. And what's nice about it is it's permanently mounted. It's not something you take on and off. You just fold it up, and he looked like he held it on with a little cotter pin.
Yeah, and I mean, it folds up like you said. So I mean, just some great ideas, and for anybody that is new to hunting, or or not, and you just want to get involved more with it, that's a great way to do it. And how I search for groups, rather than people recommending certain groups for me, is just put in keywords into the thing, and look under the groups portion on Facebook, and there'll be a ton of groups. So you could do Central Texas archery, or Central Texas bow, and there's going to be 6 or 7 groups at least that pop up, and just start following those and become a part of the conversation.
Yeah, and I mean, some are better than others. There's a few waterfowl groups I follow that are that leave a little bit to be desired. But I mean, you got to just kind of take all that with a grain of salt, because there is good information in there. And plus, I always like looking at the pictures of the guys are killing ducks out there, and it makes me feel that, hey, even though I've had a couple lousy hunts here lately, that that it can be done and get done out there. Am I losing you, Trevor?
Hey, yeah, right. I'm back. I'm back.
You're back? All right.
Sorry, I went down in a valley.
Yeah,
Yep.
you're getting out to that section approaching the national forest where it starts to get a little spotty in the cell coverage.
Yeah, I'm about 10 minutes past Marquez now, so.
Yep. So why don't you tell everybody about your bow hunting out there in the public land close to me
Yeah, so
and Heartbreak City?
I have been dreading this podcast, and we've had to now relive it like 3 times, and I've had to retell it about 3 or 4 times onto the podcast, and it doesn't get any easier.
I can
Um,
imagine not.
you know, it really doesn't, and losing all that content and then having to retell this again is not something I really am looking forward to. But yeah, so middle of the rut out there, or just a touch after. I was going out as much as I could. So this is bow only, buck only, just regular antler restrictions for Central Texas. And going out, I've been seeing a ton of does in the spot, on the spot that I had mentioned in a couple of previous podcasts, next to the pond, next to the creek.
Yep.
So got in, put me some sit out, some doe on a wick, and climbed up in the stand. Was in the stand about an hour of legal shooting time, and out walks this buck. And I saw him barely through the trees at about 25 yards when I first saw him. And he comes, and this trail that he's walking in on is behind a big cedar tree and a big elm 25. He crosses behind that tree. While he's doing that, I'm like, okay, that's a nice deer. Let me get ready. So come back, come to full draw, just in case he's the buck I want. And he steps out. I ID him. I'm like, yes, that is the buck I want. That is a, mature buck, public land buck, chocolatey horn. Start getting excited. And so wait for that front leg to go forward, let the arrow fly. I see it hit right on the shoulder. And I see the arrow still sticking out way more than it should be. I didn't have nearly the penetration I needed. I think it hit the scapula there. And kept going. And he ran about 75 yards or so. And then I could see him, and he stopped right on the edge of this tree line, looked back, then went into the brush. So at that point, I don't remember if I think I called you. And
yeah, you called me.
Said, hey, arrow to buck. And we both were like, all right, I need to give it some time because I'm not too positive about my shot placement. And we talked about it for quite a while. And I think I gave it 2-3 hours. No, about 2 hours probably.
Yeah, you wound up giving it about 2 hours because you talked to me for about 30 minutes and then you wound up going to go get some lunch in the little town nearby. So
yep, and then coming back. And so went back in, started tracking at the last, at my shot. So no blood right there at the shot, but I had seen him where he ran off and stopped about 75, 100 yards away at that tree line. So I go up to this tree line. There's a good pool of blood. And I'm like, oh, man, I don't know about my shot placement, but this is a good start. This is a good pool of blood. Look up about 5 more yards, and there's my arrow. So I'm like, well, at least there's not an arrow holding the blood in. This arrow has now come out, and he could potentially bleed out. But I start second guessing when I pick up the arrow, and I only have about 6.5, 7 inches of penetration. Like, well, that could have busted through the shoulder and hit vitals, or it could have gone at an angle.
Could have got an artery.
It could have gone at an angle, and I could have just, shot straight up shoulder, hit the bone, and then it fell, he knocked it out on some brush. So
Yeah.
I'm like, man, I really hope I didn't wound this deer. So track for at least 3 hours, and I get to my last point of blood about probably 10 different times, encircling that last point of blood, going into going to ponds nearby, going to bed nearby, thick cover, everything. And nothing made sense, no other sign, no other anything. So in fear that I had wounded this animal, I told you, find me, go online, because I don't have that great a cell service, and find me a blood tracking dog.
Yep.
Find me somebody that I can call and get out here. Because I want to make sure that this deer isn't up in that cover over there, wounded, to where he's immobile and he's just going to get killed by coyotes. I want to do everything in my power to take responsibility for this deer.
Yeah.
So, long story short, get the dogs out, and this gentleman was super helpful, knew exactly what he's doing. He's been doing it a long time. He brought 2 dogs out. They were Blue Lacy and Catahoula mix, I think, and a little bit of something else. But man, those dogs were great. And he pushed them hard, and he knew how to work those dogs. So we went up and we did circles on circles on circles, and I think we ended up walking about 3 miles, and ended up doing giant circles, trying to just to push that deer up so the dogs could run it and bay it.
Yeah. To get on the blood and follow it up and track it down to wherever he bedded down and everything else.
And it also made me feel better bringing him to the last spot of blood, and then him saying, well, yeah, man, I don't see any more blood either. Like,
Yeah.
having that other set of eyes to say, you're not crazy, like, you did your job tracking. We, as humans, we have nothing else we can do. Now let's leave it up to the dogs.
Yeah.
This is our last effort to do our part.
And then the dogs got on the track for what, another quarter mile or so?
Yeah, they went on, and they had a decent track into some thick brush, and we went into the thicket, man. And like I said, we did about, I don't remember, it was somewhere in between 2 or 3 miles, and just circles on circles, and ended up making one big loop, and then coming back to our starting point, and then going off in the opposite direction that the deer did not go, but we figured let's check it out anyways, just in case the deer made a giant loop into the opposite direction.
Yeah.
And that was right at dark. And so at that point, we had been, I had been out there since before dark, and now it's getting dark. And one of the dogs actually ran up on a hog and bait a hog for a second, and sank its teeth into the hog, and we heard it squeal. And so then he called him back, and we called it a night. And man, that's hard to do. And I was not happy. I was mad at myself for sure for making that bad shot.
Well, the one thing so we can get you to quit reliving, basically this horror, because like I know you feel horrible about it. I mean, you did basically everything right. I mean, you handled it. You did a lot more than a lot of people would do, unfortunately. A lot of people wouldn't have called the dog. A lot of people would have just gone, to the, last blood and said, oh, well, that's, oh, well, just gone.
Said, yeah, oh, well, that's hunting for you, and
yeah.
Go back to the truck.
But I mean, you shot that deer at 9 something in the morning.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it was that was at it was either 7:30, 7:45, something like that. It was early.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. But you started tracking at 9 something.
Yeah.
Because you went and got food and then came back.
Yeah.
And you didn't leave there till dark. I mean, you were there till after dark, because I called you at 8:30 at night. You're like, yeah, I'm just now getting back in the truck, to head home. We did all we could do and then some.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, but, after all this, what is the one takeaway that you have from all this? What was the one thing that you changed now, to prevent this from happening?
Well, I took a look at my gear, taking a little bit of blame off of myself because I don't want it all. But I do take a lot of the blame. But I looked at my gear and I said, I went a little cheap on my broadheads, and that's the last piece of my puzzle that, I hadn't gone and done everything I could. I didn't reach into my pockets as far as I could have for that piece of gear, and which is a stupid thing to do because that's one of the most important things.
Yeah, that's the part that actually gets the job done.
Yeah, and it ethically gets the job done. And so those immediately went into the trash, and switched up, got something that I know a lot of people shoot, and I know that a lot of people have had success with. Even reached out to one of the Facebook groups and got suggestions. There's another broadhead that I'm also looking at, but for right now, I'm shooting a Rage broadhead.
Are you shooting the standard Rage, or are you shooting the Tripans?
The hypodermics.
Yeah, those are some sharp broadheads there. Yeah, because I shoot either Muzzy Trocars and the Alrighty, Trevor. Before we lost you due to cruddy internet service or whatever, we were talking about broadheads and how you were switching broadheads and how you were going with the Rage hypodermics and how I shoot the Muzzy Trocars, the 3-blade fixed.
My question I was asking you right before we dropped was if those were expandables or not.
No, I'm shooting. I do have expandables. I do have mechanical broadheads, but I typically like to shoot the 3-blade fixed.
Yeah,
the 100.
Yeah, that's what I was shooting, was 3-blade fixed, but it was just a cheap broadhead, and I owe it to the deer to, do everything I can, monetarily to make it more ethical for them. So but yeah, I switched broadheads and I'm back after it. I'll be hunting muzzleloader because season's over after today. But yeah, so I'll be shooting those next season and hopefully have a better success, on a buck next season out there.
Yeah, I think with our squirrel scouting trip and you going out there and do those little bit of muzzleloader hunting and stuff, I think next year may be the year we get it done. I definitely want to change up the area we're hunting. A couple of those East Texas Hunting Club and another one. I've noticed these guys that are killing bucks. I've noticed something consistent in their pictures, and I want to try it next year and see if we can't get on some bucks. I think they're doing something out there, and we'll speak to it more next year after we try it out. But I'm developing a hypothesis as we go.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, we'll touch more on that next time.
Yeah.
So I just to wrap that story up, I wanted to do everything in my power, and I think I did, and I made changes, and it happens, but it hurts.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's nothing worse than, putting an arrow in something and having it get away, especially, a quality animal that you've been, hunting, that quality animal, not that specific deer per se, but just, a nice representative species of, Central Texas whitetail where, you found it, you got it, you did everything right. And then in the moment, either you pulled the shot or, perhaps, any number of things that, possibly went wrong, all snowballed up, to, result in not getting that deer.
Yeah, that's archery, and there's so many factors, and it only takes one to go wrong to do that. But I like to think, and I have a good feeling that that I didn't make a fatal shot on that buck, and it wasn't mortally wounded. And you know, hopefully that deer is okay, and I can hunt him again sometime, and hopefully successfully harvest him.
I think you'll have another shot at him come next season, come October 1st. Well, let's go ahead and wrap this up. We got a few more things to talk about, but we'll sit down here after you get done out there with your smoke pole and hopefully have a good harvest story to talk about. But yeah, so let's go ahead and wrap this up. Everyone go check out our Facebook page. It's Cast Blast Grill Chill. We're on Instagram, Cast Blast Grill Chill. We have a Facebook group too. I'm gonna work on adding a few people to that, and come getting that, and we'll talk swap hunting stories, swap tactics, and stuff like that.
Yeah, so if anybody gets bored in the hunting season, we can just get in off season, we can get the conversation started. Hopefully some of the listeners will be able to connect, and we'll be able to, like you said, swap pictures, stories. We always reply to everything y'all send us, comment wise or personal message. So yeah, let's get the conversation started. Don't forget to go on iTunes or whatever platform you're listening from, and subscribe and give us a rating. That really helps us out and lets us continue to bring you some content.
Exactly. And we'll be doing another giveaway here before too terribly long, whenever we get up to 100 members on the Facebook group. So until then, guys, everyone be safe out there. Enjoy these last couple weeks of season. For deer, if you're out there muzzleloader hunting, or ducks, geese, etc., so forth and so on.